they were a bit emboldened this week, the TRAs, because they've had some great successes, and we've had them on the news, and they're screaming at the ladies, and the ladies are trying to speak, and they're stopping the ladies speak. So they thought they'd go out to the western suburbs, where it's election mode in New South Wales at the moment. And One Nation, I think, are trying to sweep up the disaffected migrant vote. And we saw that same-sex marriage vote as well. We saw that even Labor's heartland, where there was a lot of migrant populations from conservative religious traditions, they voted against same-sex marriage. So the Labor Party at the time was saying, oh, well, it is a problem. We're going to have to take them with us. In other words, we're going to have to bring them into this ideology, which is what they're attempting. This is a new form of assimilation, where whether you believe it or not, I do think that migrants are on a journey. Some migrants, and these guys are Lebanese, and I'm part of the Lebanese community. Some of them do need to go. A lot of them are very progressive already. Even new migrants understand that homosexuality is accepted in this country, and there's no problem with it. But this new stuff that they're putting in the schools is making some of them a little bit. Can we say a little bit shitty?
A little bit upset, yeah. So, so what's happened is that, like there was an event at a Catholic church in Belmore. Belmore is a small suburb in Sydney's southwest. It's the Labor heartland. This is where Paul Keating was born and bred. It's a city of migrants. It's like about 30% Catholic. The migrants come from everywhere. They're from Lebanon, Italy, China, Vietnam. It's a real melting pot, and it's a tiny little suburb. So there was a meeting at a Catholic church in Belmore. Mark Latham from One Nation was talking to the community. There were around 500 people in attendance to listen to Mark Latham, right? So that's not nothing, right? No. In a suburb of 6,000 people,
yes,
right? 500 people have turned up on one occasion to listen to a One Nation.
That's right. And One Nation is clearly going for that vote, for the disaffected Labor vote, and they have every right to go for it. I mean,
and there's an election on Saturday, right?
Yeah. I'm not in favour of One Nation. I've never voted for them. I've never even considered voting for them. But they are a party, a legitimate party, and they have every right to go for that vote. And if Labor are stupid enough to lose it, then, let's see this footage of these guys. So the TRAs have turned up to this thing.
Yeah, and I'll just say,
I want to say that they're kids as well. These young, we talk about the TRAs as if, they're all 10-foot autogonophiles, but they're not. These are young people who've got ideas in their head. They're part of the same socialist organisation that I was part of, that you might have been part of as a young person. We go and shake our fist at the sky. So they're idealistic young people. They're told to come to this thing, and they're told they're from a Rainbow Alliance. Probably know where they are from.
Yeah, they are from a Community Action for Rainbow Rights. Yeah. And it looks like there's actually, this is not the first occasion where they have deliberately sought out a confrontation with this particular group of Catholics. So
it just seems so stupid.
This is a repeat, okay?
Yeah, it just seems...
There's a relationship emerging here. Okay, let's play the thing.
Here they go.
I got it in the face.
Okay, so we can see the police are surrounding a couple of young people to just keep them safe.
I heard one of them say... I didn't hear it then, but I thought I had one of them say at one point, we're going to teach them a lesson. And I didn't think that they meant they were going to go and beat the shit out of them. I think they meant, okay, you want to take us on, 200 Lebanese blokes, and you're half a dozen vegans. What do you think's going to happen? And it did. The leader of the Christian Lives Matter, which is the Lebanese Catholic group that's been said to be a part of this, has said, look, we absolutely condemn violence. we just wanted to go out. I think that the intention was to go out and show them, got kids, we're having a meeting here about our children who have been taught shit in school that we don't want to. We're not mucking around. We're the father bears, and we're not mucking around with you. So, and I think some guys gone in there and shit's got real. And I'm not. Let me condemn the violence. Can I denounce? I'm not denouncing the Lebanese people. I love them. They're part of my heart. But yeah, we're not in favor of violence, but we also want to distribute the blame here, not to the children who get sucked into these things, but whoever sent the kids there for a start. What are you thinking? What are you thinking sending kids out to the western suburbs to take on the Lebs? You got to be crazy. They're not violent people generally, but they're people from a particular political tradition. They've kept Christianity going in the Middle East against fairly scary people, and they're fairly serious about family. They're serious about faith, and they're serious about principles of protection of women and children.
So what we could see there was there's a huge number of Lebanese men in the street. They're just kind of milling around, talking, making their presence known. And then the camera pans and you can see the police standing between two vehicles with forming a ring around a small number of young looking individuals, mostly with coloured hair. And we do know that there was an independent journalist who was knocked over. We're not entirely sure who knocked them over.
I've been trying to contact him, but he's not really keen to talk to me.
We did see the footage of who it was, like specifically, but it's not clear like what their motivation was. And we did also see in another piece of footage that an individual who appeared to be female, we're not sure, was knocked over. And again, we're not sure.
We've had someone say that was their relative on the tweets as well. So we know that a couple of young people were harmed. We don't know how serious all that is. We're not downgrading it. I've been following this Christian Lives Matter group for a couple of years now. I've been following them since same-sex marriage, just because of my interest in the Lebanese community, just because I've never seen Lebanese actually become political like this before, in the way that they have. I know a lot of Maronites, generally Liberal Party voters, a lot of Lebanese Muslims, generally Labour Party voters. You kind of get to know the community and who they vote for. But this group of young guys, men, Catholic, religious men and women, have come up, and I've been watching them because I'm interested in them. They're from a different political tradition.
I wanted to also note that initially when this story first broke, ABC reported this as a group of far-right fascists. So we're looking at them and they're clearly Lebanese men, and we know that they've come out of a Catholic church where they were listening to Mark Latham, right? So this is not an organised group of Nazis. And in fact, we just heard from the big Nazi.
Yeah, these are not the same people. We're not Nazis and they're not Nazis.
He probably would have seen these people and said, "Oh, they're lost. They're disorganized.
Well, they're Lebanese." He would say a lot worse than that.
Lebanese. Right. So, but ABC took a statement from this group, Community Action for Rainbow Rights. Now, understand that they're a group associated with Socialist Alternative, which is a university-level socialist group in Sydney. So they're children, essentially, and they issued a statement saying that this was like a far-right fascist group. Now, over the course of the day, that story was changed significantly, but the CARR people did add details claiming that they were being punched in the face. If that happened, I think that that's really not appropriate.
No, we do know there was
Um,
violence, and we do
there
know
was
that,
violence.
yeah,
Yeah.
people were harmed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a scuffle. And we have had people from the Lebanese community come out and say that they do not condone violence. The guy who was knocked to the ground said that the religious community were very good to them. And do we want multiculturalism or do we not? Do we want these
I
people to come to our country and just adopt all this absolute nonsense gender shit that's being taught in their schools, that we can see that it's grooming? And we talked about the TikToker comedian last week, and how that there was a conflict there, and the Lebanese are coming up saying, or not the Lebanese, but the Arabs are coming out saying, we're not having this. And these guys are saying the same thing. And I think you sent me something where there was a guy saying this is not liberal democracy. And so they're coming saying, actually, we've come to this country because we have a freedom to practice our religion. And you're saying that we have to send our children into this indoctrination nonsense. And all we're saying is we don't want to teach them that stuff. We have a right. They come from our bodies. We have our own culture. We have a right to teach them our own culture and our own religion.
Well, see, a lot of Lebanese who've come to Australia, like a lot of Christian and Catholic Lebanese have come to Australia because of religious persecution.
Yes, especially Christian.
They've come here because they want to be Christians, and
Well,
they don't want to be.
Muslims come for the same reason,
and and there is a conversation to be had about multiculturalism and what does it mean to be multicultural.
That's
Like, is multicultural, like, are we talking about actual grassroots cultures? Are we talking about cultures that don't ever intersect, don't ever mingle, don't ever change?
Yes.
Or that are preserved in amber? So, or are we talking about a multiculture, which is actually more of a monoculture where diversity is reflected through the state and then beamed back down to us in acceptable ways?
And there's conversations to be had, right, about if a homosexual boy or a girl is brought up in these things, we want to have organizations where they can go and say, look, mum and dad are super religious, they're super traditional, I'm going to need to get accommodation. Now, that is a legitimate purpose of an LGB organization.
Yes.
Where they will say, okay, we'll find you housing, and then we can help negotiate with your parents and try and bring them along with your story. This is a legitimate thing. I've seen some of this stuff in the communities. We had to take them on a journey, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then to take the next step and say, actually, your kid's going to be born in the wrong body. If you don't accept it, we're going to take them away. You want to go and talk about that at Lakemba, or at this Catholic church with these labs. They're gonna say, no way, over my dead body.
Well, the thing that I'm really interested in is, again, it's this clash of cultures. So on the one hand, we have the very, very kind of covertly patriarchal TRA culture, which is that, women are an idea in a man's head.
Yeah.
So we fight the patriarchy, but what we actually mean is, like, we're not going to, we're just going to pretend women don't exist.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Lebanese Catholics are coming from, like, quite a structured and externalized patriarchy, where they not only feel where one of the artifacts of that is that protection of women is part of a man's role in life.
That's right. And honor.
And honor. And just like we saw with Shimmer and Nessa last week, the Muslim comedian, we're actually seeing there's a mob of 200 men who don't like the way you're speaking to their women and their children. Right. And they're, only we can talk about our rights as women. We can talk about how it's not fair. We can talk about what it's like to have our vaginas and our breastfeeding and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, men's culture is set by men.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing here is men coming out and setting the culture. And they're saying,
Yeah.
no, to be a part, to what it means to be a man in this society is to reject this grooming.
Yeah, that's right. And we want these women to come on board with us as well.
Yeah,
we want these
we do.
Lebanese women in our movement. And we don't want to say to them, if you come into our movement, you need to leave, your ideas of, men being strong and whatever at the door. We accept, if you're going to accept people in a political movement, then you have to accept them. Sure, we don't really want people coming in and saying homophobic or
No.
misogynistic things. That's not what feminism is. And I don't think, I don't know, I think Lebanese women are very progressive. My husband's mother came out in the 60s, and you got pictures of her and before the Civil War particularly, and they're very modern. Lebanon, we went there a few years ago, in Beirut, very fashionable, very modern. So we're not talking about people from a backwards culture. We're talking about people from a different culture.
Yeah.
They come here and sometimes they don't want to leave their values behind. They don't want to leave their family values behind. They don't want to leave their idea of masculinity behind. They don't want to leave their ideas of femininity behind because they belong to them. And we have no right, really, to be lecturing them about that stuff unless it's to do with how we organise the state and how we're going to protect children, and try and take them on the journey about some of the stuff as well, about gender diversity, about homosexuality.
Yeah, exactly. And this is sort of where the rubber meets the road. Like, I have my ideas about how things should be run. And if I want you to share my ideas, there's really two ways I can go about it. And one is to tell you, you must agree with me. And the other is for us to try to find a common ground.
Yes. And these little rainbow kids are being told that they're going to go and force their ideas on these labs. And they're so naive, honestly.
And they're being told no.
That's right. They're being told no.